Today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make this inventory right here with slot animations for when you hover, and also how to implement the items with stacking. But yeah, you guys enjoy. Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a full inventory. Today, for this part, we're just going to be covering the basics and getting a little bit of functionality. But mainly getting the inventory system set up so you can add items, remove items, and preview the items, along with show which one you're selecting and do a little bit of animation work with each slot, just so it looks super interactive. So I've already taken it upon myself to make some inventory sprites here. These are just some items that you can get. And then this is an inventory slot I just made quick. And this is 2 frames, one with the slot itself and one with just a highlight border that'll be drawn on top. So I will post, actually I don't know. I mean, if you don't have anything, you could just make a simple rectangle. And then the items free to do whatever you want here, and I'll show you how to make your own items as well. So first we're going to create an inventory object. So just call it oInventory. I'm very biased, but this is, I think, the best naming style. But that's all right if you use an obj underscore. I don't like underscores as much. Anyways, we're going to make a variable called invWidth. So this is going to be the width slots. So how many slots wide? So I'm going to say, let's just do 9. And then we're going to do inv height. And we're just going to do 4 on that. And this is going to be height slots. Inv total equals inv width multiplied by inv height. And this gets the total amount of slots in our inventory, just so we know how many there are in total. So when we go and loop through them, we know a good stopping point. Now, we need to make the inventory array. So we're just going to make a, oh, actually no, we're going to do array create. And size is going to be the inv total. So this is pretty much just going to be making a list of -1s, meaning there is inventory total, so that number of -1s, and -1 is just going to represent empty or nothing in the slot, but it still exists as a slot. So that is actually, for the most part, all we need here. Then we're going to go into our draw event, and we're going to actually do a draw GUI. I personally like doing it. And we're actually going to do, what was it called? Display set GUI size. Do this as the camera size of your room. So mine, in your viewport, so enable viewport visible, I put 480 by 270, and then this just my window size. But do whatever you have on your camera size for your GUI size. That will make your sizing of anything you draw in your GUI the proper sizing of everything. So next, I'm just going to do 4 var I equals 0, I is less than, and we're going to do the array length of inventory. Oops. Inventory, that's the name of the array, and then I++. This will just simply loop through, and now we just got to find the coordinate of each slot. So we're going to do var xx and var yy. For xx, we're just going to put 10, no, actually no, let's just put 20 plus I mod, and actually before we continue, let's do inv padding equals, we're going to do sprite get size, sprite get width, sorry, s inv slot, so that's the name of your inventory slot sprite, and then plus how many pixels in between. So I'm going to do 2 pixels. I personally like that. So I mod, and then we're going to do inv width multiplied at the end, inv padding. And then we are going to almost do the same thing on this one. We're going to start at 20 as well. I div Don't do mod, do div. And that will get that. And now if we just do draw sprite, s in slot 0xxyy, and we were to throw this in the game, you will already see the slots displayed with those parameters. Obviously, when you hover over, nothing happens and you can't click on anything. No items can be shown, but that is just the slots being rendered now. And if we want to render it in the middle of our screen, which I feel like a lot of people would, we're just going to do 240, which is half of my camera, and then 135, which is half of the vertical. Now, we're also going to do minus, I'm trying to think here, minus the inv width, minus 1, I'm trying to think of this formula, multiplied by inventory padding, and then divided by 2. I believe. Yes. And then for this one, inv height minus 1, inv padding divided by 2. I think if we do that, yep, it is now perfectly centered. That formula is weird, I'll say. That's just trial and error on my part. I've done this a lot, so I'm not pulling that from any certain source. I'm just testing my memory at this point. Okay. So now, since we have all that, can't talk. The slots are being rendered. We want to make it so when we hover over it, it does a highlight. So we're going to say var is hover equals false. Okay. Now we're going to say if point in rectangle, and this is where it gets confusing. Since if you're using a draw GUI, you have to do different coordinates other than mouse X. So normally it would just be this. But instead, since we're on GUI, you have to get device X, device mouse X to GUI 0. This is the same as mouse X, but for the GUI layer, so it's just a normalized mouse coordinate. And then the same thing with Y. So we're going to do MX, MY, and then XX minus, and our slot width, so SW, sprite get width, S in slot, and since mine is a perfect square, I don't have to worry about doing anything too special. So we're going to do slot width divided by 2, and then YY minus slot width divided by 2, XX plus slot width divided by 2, the YY plus slot width divided by 2. Yeah, but like I was saying, since mine's a perfect square, I don't have to worry about doing height differently, just because it's both going to be 26. So it's just offsetting it by 13. And then in here, I'm just going to say is hover equals true. And if you actually watch my button tutorial, I did something fairly similar to this, except without the for loop. But this is just sensing the collision with the thing here. I don't know why my brain is just not working. So now, since we're drawing the inventory slot here, which we're actually going to change this to an EXT, just to get some more control over it. I personally like using EXT. I never use the normal draw sprite anymore. We're going to do slot 1, which in my inventory slot, again, I have those 2 frames. That is very important for this part. Same parameters except for 1. And we're going to say if is hover. And then we're going to draw that sprite if we're hovering. So now if you actually run this and test it, if you hover over that sprite, it already shows and knows which one you're hovering over. And it should work pretty much perfect for all that. And it only does it when you're in the inventory. Okay, now my favorite part with inventories, at least what I do, I make another array here. I do env_anims equals array. We're just gonna make a blank array this time. Actually, no, we'll do the same thing here. We're gonna do the inv total still, and then we're gonna say for var I equals 0, I is less than the array length of inventory anims I plus plus. And what we're gonna do here is make structs inside of these slots. So we're gonna say inv anims I equals a struct of size 1. And then for now, let's just do that. I don't think we're gonna need any of the X offset and Y offset that I sometimes do. But honestly, this is good. And that will just loop through and do all that. And in case I was not on there long enough, there you go. Okay, so now with those inventory anims, if we're hovering on this, instead of just doing isHover, we're going to say inv anims I dot size equals lerp, and get this same thing right here. Lerp it to 1.1 by the amount of 0.1. Actually, we're going to do 0.2. And we're going to say else, same thing, except lerp it to, not 11, 1 by 0.1. And what this will do is if you run it, nothing will happen yet, I realize. I didn't hook this up. So copy this here, and we're going to say var size mod equals that. And then we're going to do 1 multiplied by that on both of these, make sure, for the X scale and Y scale. Now, if you run this, they will actually smoothly size based on if you're hovering over them or not. And it just kind of gives that extra feel, and since they're stored independently within the array, it really gives it that huge extra game feel kind of thing. And we're actually going to make that a little faster on the decline here. Yeah, just like that. So it feels a bit more snappy, but it seems super, super interactive. Now, we have the inventory, and it's rendering. We just don't have items. So we're going to say draw items. And actually, while I'm here too, we're going to say draw border with that comment. But we have no items to draw yet. But we're going to say if inventory, oops, not inventory I, so that's slot I in the for loop, the current slot. We're going to say if it is not equal to -1. So if you remember from the beginning, -1 is representing an empty slot. And the reason why we're just checking if it's not equal to -1, so it's pretty much saying, hey, do we have an item here to pull any sprite from to draw? And that will pretty much do that. So we're going to say var sprite equals, and you can just copy this here, inventory I. We're going to say 0 because we're going to be doing a quantity as well. So we're going to do item quantity. So 0 is going to be item, 1 is going to be quantity. Yeah, and we're going to say dot sprite because it's going to be a struct. And then we're going to say, and you can just copy this right here, one of these draws. We're going to say draw sprite subimage 0 at xxyy 1 multiplied by size mod 1 multiplied by size mod 0 c white 1. And now we need quantity. So I'm just going to put amount. I don't really want to put quantity. We're going to say var amount equals, and we're just going to copy this part and just change that to 1. We're going to say if amount is greater than 1, because if it's just 1, we don't want it to really draw a number there. We're going to say draw text transformed xxyy string amount x scale. We're going to put 0.2, 0.2 probably. Angle 0, and also we want draw set haline or h align, fa right, and draw set v align, fa middle, and we're just gonna say +8. I'm just ballparking this, by the way. I'm not pulling these numbers from anywhere. And 6. We're gonna try that. I don't know if that's right at all, but we're gonna figure that out later. And then make sure after you do the H-align and V-align, you set it back to left and top, just so you don't end up forgetting about other stuff when you try drawing. Okay, now that is actually most of the inventory done, apart from the actual input like clicking and stuff, but we will cover that in a bit. Now if you go to the scripts, we're just going to create one called items, and this is where we're going to store all of our items. Now there's a couple ways I would go about making items. I personally like making them global structs, just because you can access them anywhere. And also, for some reason, when you do saving and stuff with these, it gets a bit awkward when trying to cross-reference them. So just make sure the names are consistent as well. So I'm going to say global.item, and I always do all caps in case you want to make a console system with a parser, just so it's easier to look up items. So item, I currently have 4, so I'm going to do log equals, and then a struct, and we're going to say name sprite item, or we're going to put type, I guess. And we're also going to put, yeah, that's good for right now. And above all these, we're actually going to define some types. So we're going to say enum it, our item type. We'll just do that. We're going to have resource, consumable, and tools. Yeah, I think that's all we have right now. So then whatever type it is, do item type dot resource for that, and the sprite for this is slog, and this is just a log for the name. Now with this same concept, I have 4 items, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy them and make sure. I personally do cap locks for these, pickaxe, and then rock. Just go ahead and name all these properly, but super easy to add items. And this is a consumable. This is a tool. And just make sure you have the right sprites associated with each item. So now, I have all those items done. So now, they can technically exist in the inventory and they would be drawn. But the issue is, we have no way to add them to the inventory. So we're going to make another script called inv functions. And what I like to do with the script is add any kind of thing related to the inventory. I'm going to pretty much throw in here. So I'm going to make a function called inv add. Also inv remove. Those are the big 2, honestly, that make this inventory functional. So inv add, we're going to need the inventory you're targeting. So the reason why I say this, because we're not just going to have one inventory most of the time. A lot of the times you'll have chests, which will also be treated as inventories. And we can do a swap system with this inventory system defined. Pretty much, heck, hey, what inventory do you want to add this item to? That is why we're defining that. But okay, inventory, item, amount. And, oh, I actually forgot. I would add one other thing. If an item stacks or not. So I'm just going to put stacks as the name in here. Pickaxe, we're not going to have stack, and rocks we will. So pickaxes will be the only thing that do not stack in the inventory, just because it is a tool and it is fairly large. I know logs are, but most games let you do that. So, okay, back to here, sorry. So we have the inventory item amount, and we are going to do the same thing with inventory remove. Now, there's a couple ways we can do the add. We could either do a repeat, which is much slower, so we're not going to do that. So, what we got to do is say var added equals 0. This is pretty much just going to keep track of how many we've added thus far to the inventory. So we're going to say for var I equals 0, I is less than the array length, array length of inventory. Sorry, actually no. The inventory here that we passed in, I++. So we're gonna loop through inventory. And now what we're gonna do is first find if the inventory has the item we're looking for. So actually we're gonna change this. Look for same item to add to a current stack before we add it to a new stack. So we're going to say if inventory or inv I is not equal to -1, so if it has an item, then if inv I0.name is equal to item.name. So we're pretty much saying, hey, is the item in that slot's name the same as the item we're trying to add's name? So if it does have the same name, that means it's the same item. And the reason we look it up with strings, I know it might not sound the best because it'd be better with an ID system. But with this, we can do easy imports with strings, if you're using like INIs or JSONs, and it will smoothly transition into the load and still work with the current items in your inventory. That's why I like using this method. So I've had a lot of issues if I just do if the item is equal to item. Well, no, it actually isn't because it's a global, while the other one is a loaded, which gets turned into a local string, which is confusing. I spent so long trying to fix that. Anyways, it is the same item. So we're going to say var can add equals, and this is the tough part. What do we want our max stack to be? I'm going to say, for the sake of this, I'm just going to do 64, the classic Minecraft amount. We're just going to do that. Or actually, I'm going to do 99. That's different, I guess. So can add. We're going to say the total are 99 minus, and actually let's just do global dot stack size equals 99. Super easy. So it subtracts the current amount in the inventory from the stack size, and that pretty much, like if we had 10 items or 9 items and that gets subtracted from 99, we can add 90. Now, we're just going to say if amount, or wait, need added equals amount. Sorry. Need added equals amount. So if can add is less than need amount, or equal to, I guess. So if the can add is less than or equal to the needed, trying to think here. Oh, here we are, yeah. Else add rest, add sum. So if can add is less than how much you can or are needing to add to the inventory, then we are going to say needed amount minus equals can add not equals to needed need added minus equals can add, and then we say so this is going to fill that slot. So if we say inventory I equals global dot stack size. Now I did just realize before we go through any of this, we need to even see if it can stack. So before we do any of this, if the item we're trying to add dot stacks, we're going to say not. Or yeah, if it does stack, then we're going to run this loop. But if not, it doesn't make sense to even run it at all. So we're just not going to. So this is going to do great. And then if we're adding the rest, we're just going to say inventory I1 plus equals needed added, or need added. Then we're just going to say return because we already fulfilled everything. Now, this is only if the item exists already. So if not, new stack, we're going to make this here. And we are going to say if, so similar concept here, instead of not equal, we're going to say if it is equal to -1, then we're going to say inv I equals item amount. Sorry, no. Wait. Okay, yeah. So if needed amount is greater than global.stackSize, then we are going to set this one to 99 and set the needed amount minus equals just global stack size. And then we're going to continue in the loop. Else, if we can put everything into this one slot, we're just going to say inventory I equals item amount. Boom. And then return. And then I always like to put a return at the bottom. So that right there is how you add items. Now, removing items, way easier. Need removed. And we're going to say amount. Now, this one's a lot easier since it's only looking for existing items. So we're going to say this, loop through the inventory again. If inv I 0.name is equal to item.name, then we are going to say var can remove equals, oh, sorry, oops. If inv I is not equal to -1 before we check this, because it will crash if we try to check the name if there's no item. So can remove equals global dot, oops. Oh wait, no, we don't have to do that. Oopsie. The 1. So inventory I1 is how many we can remove. Now, if can remove is less than needed or need removed, which should have var, and we're also going to do an else. So if can remove is less than how many we can that we really need to remove, then we're just going to say need removed minus equals can remove, and then can wait. No, that we're going to say inv I equals -1. So that's because we removed everything from it. Else, we need to do inv I 1 minus equals need removed. And if inv I 1 is less than or equal to 0, then inv, and it's just a safety check, equals -1. If it's pretty much saying, hey, if there's nothing left in the slot but there's still an item there, we need to remove that item because there's none left. And then we're just going to do return, and then return right at the end, just like that. And now we are actually able to add items to our inventory. So if I were to go to a step event here in our inventory, and if I say if keyboard check pressed vk space, we're going to say inv add inventory is the target inventory. The item, we're actually just going to do choose between global.item log, global.item rock, global.item drumstick, global.item pickaxe. And then the amount, we're just going to do 1. And now that inventory should be working. When I press space, we are getting items put into our inventory. You see that the pickaxes do not stack, but everything else does. And it works perfect. Now, we can't really see the text that well, so I'm going to change that size to 0.5 probably. Much better. Much more readable. But yes, that is how you do that. And also, if you guys do see any blurry stuff on your screen with this, just go to Game Options and go to Windows, Graphics, and just turn off Interpolate Colors. I'm on the Mac one, but it doesn't work. Yeah, there we are. But yeah, pretty much that's how you add and remove items. Now, another thing we probably want to add in the near future is moving and swapping items in the inventory. Super important. Maybe a sort button, armor slots, accessory slots, whatever you guys are thinking. Definitely a hotbar separation. But yeah, we'll end this video here. You do have the basic stuff here, but you can always spend time making more items and just kind of thinking of what else you want to add. And also let me know in the comments what I should keep in mind for the next video. But this will be a multi-part series on going super in depth on just the inventory, so you guys have something really polished. Anyways, you guys have a good rest of your day, and see ya.